Hey everyone, today's episode of the Guitar Speak podcast is brought to you by the Michael Dolce 2019 Masterclass Tour and the Byron Bay Guitar Festival.
Hi guys, Michael Dolce here to announce my Masterclass Tour for 2019. It has already kicked off and I'm looking forward to bringing it to a town near you. This particular time around, I'm dedicating the sessions to an open style topic. So basically, you guys as the players will dictate how the masterclass will run. The classes are open for intermediate to advanced players, and as per usual, I always strive to make the classes non-intimidating. There's a whole heap of jam in. If you'd like some more information on the classes, please visit my website at www.michaeldolcemusic, and I hope to see you guys there. Cheers for now.
Byron Bay Guitar Festival's on soon at the Byron Bay Brewery, Saturday 12 and Sunday 13 October. 2 days, 2 stages, masterclasses, markets and 30 performances from the hottest guitar acts, including Hearts, Frenzel Rom, the Delta Rigs, Nathan Cavalieri, Marshall O'Kell, Mini Marks, The Sidemen and so many more. Saturday and Sunday 12-13 October at the Byron Bay Brewery. Hurry and get your tickets now at byronbayguitarfestival.com. Amplified sponsors of Bay FM.
Hi there, you are listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. My name is Matt Wakeling and this is the show I've been producing in Sydney, Australia since around April 2016, and I get to speak to great guitar players and guitar related figures from all around the world. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode with one of Australia's most beloved musicians, Phil Ceberano. Now, Phil is a fantastic musician, having toured the world numerous times, has appeared on countless sessions and album dates, and his work with his sister Kate Ceberano as a music director and co-producer of some of that fantastic work is well documented. Now, Phil is a larger-than-life character. He's done a lot of public speaking, television, presenting, helps run a PR company, is a co-director of the Rock Academy of Australia, training up the next generation of musicians. And yet behind all of this energy is a very thoughtful and reflective man, and I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. So let's jump straight into it. Phil Ceberano, welcome to the Guitar Speak podcast.
It's great to be here.
Mate, thank you for joining us. Now, we'll obviously get to your career working with your sister Kate, but I'm wondering, if we go way back, what started you on guitar, and was your household particularly musical when you did that?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it is a question that I get asked a lot. Our household was full of, it was full of music, and it was full of expression. I think that's probably the big thing with our family. We were big on self-expression and finding your voice and finding what you wanted to communicate. It wasn't like a showbiz family. Like you read autobiographies and hear of stories of people that have gotten into music, and that their dad was a composer and their mother was an opera singer, and they learned to play the clarinet, and by the age of 16 then they started playing bass. And you almost have to say this with a English accent, because it's like the story of Jeff Beck or whatever,
Yeah, right.
I started playing drums, and then I was in a band, and then the bass player dropped out, and so I picked up the bass, and I got bored with that because all the other blokes up the front of the band were getting all the girls, and so I started playing. That's how I got into guitar playing. So no, it wasn't like that. It was more like for us, it was more like finding ways to get to perform and entertain. My sister was a born entertainer, and my brother, we were all in the school plays, like at high school. It's the only reason I went to high school was because of the school play. And it was around the late 70s and early 80s. And back then, like, the coolest thing you could do and be was to be into music or be in a band, and I had a friend who would bring records to school and play them, and I think one of the first things I heard his name was Leon Storch. He had Led Zeppelin 4, but I think it was it was Led Zeppelin 4. It was Black Dog, right?
Awesome.
So that vocal opening and then the guitar coming in, I had never heard anything so massive. And not just guitar, but everything about it was like, that's earth moving, that's earth shattering. And then when I heard Whole Lot of Love, that riff, that guitar riff, I was like, yeah, I think I want to be a part of this somehow. My thing was acting. I wanted to be an actor. I was a big sort of fan of, the James Dean, Marlon Brando sort of vibe. But I was never going to get parts back in those days because my look, there was nothing on TV that could sort of fit me in. And so I started to play guitar just in a way to kind of keep, busy and creative. Our family background is in martial arts, and my father was a really well-known karate teacher and a bit of a mentor and father figure to a lot of people back in those days. And he had a student who couldn't afford to pay for classes, and so my mother wrangled a deal with him that, well, maybe if you teach Phil to play guitar, then we can do it as like a kind of a bartering thing.
Yeah, right. Cool.
For guitar lessons. So it's not as if I kind of like said, right, that's it, I want to play guitar. It was just sort of happened, and I ended up sitting with this guy, and it was an acoustic nylon string Yamaha student guitar, and just learning a few chords. And then, he tried to kind of teach me that book. There's a book on Spanish guitar, and it just has very basic music notes, and you learn melodies and things.
Yeah, right.
And I did that for maybe 3 or 4 weeks before I got bored. And then he said, well, what is it that you want to learn? And as he was saying that, he was noodling on the guitar.
Okay.
And what he was noodling was these bluesy kind of, rock riffs. I said, I want to learn that. That's what I want to learn. And he was like, oh, well, that's the blues. And I go, well, that's, I reckon I connect with that, right? It's probably me just being lazy and bored with theory and stuff. But I knew a few chords and I could play a few Bob Dylan tunes. But when I heard Like a Rolling Stone, there was all this other stuff going on, and I'm like, oh, no, I want to learn that other stuff, all that fiddly stuff, the bluesy kind of stuff. And so that sort of started me on the whole journey. And he would take me to go and see movies at this cinema called the Valhalla, which was in Richmond back in the day. And I saw Woodstock and Hendrix at Monterey and a whole bunch of other things like that. And it was like, yep, that's what I want to do. He took me to see Santana play in 1977 at the Festival Hall. I went to see Roy Buchanan at the Dallas Brooks Hall. This is probably in the 70s. And Roy Buchanan had a Telecaster and a Fender Twin, and that was it.
That was it, yeah. Was doing all the wah-wah stuff with the tone knob and with those tricks. And awesome.
Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, that's it. That's what I want to do. So it was the first sort of 4 or 5 records were Eric Clapton Was Here, which was a live album of Eric Clapton's. Santana Moonflower was a double album with a bunch of live stuff on it. Jimi Hendrix Electric Ladyland.
Yeah.
And Led Zeppelin 4 and 2. Fleetwood Mac Rumours. All the good stuff.
Yeah.
Problem, though, for me was that's like, it's kind of like saying that you want to learn to mountain climb and then just starting at base camp,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
because it just, it was beyond, it was way, way beyond. And so you didn't have YouTube and you didn't have Tab. You just had these records, these actual records. And I remember just playing little bits over and over, little licks, just kind of like over and over. And whenever I could, I would get with guys and say, hey, how do you play that bit? Or how do you play this bit? And I've actually been thinking a lot lately about just starting a YouTube channel or a Facebook group and just doing just short little licks that people can learn, and without any kind of technical stuff. Just here's how it goes, and here's how it goes slow.
Yeah, right.
And just get all my mates to get on there and just put in their, you know, all their little licks. I had Michael Dolce approach me the other day.
Uh-huh.
It was 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
And he goes, oh, man, I've been doing that lick that you showed on your video. And I was like, I guess it's not my lick. It was just it was something I ripped off another guy. He goes, oh,
Yeah.
no, but I never thought to do that. And it was just really simple, you know. But that community sort of vibe is
Yeah, I
a really
love
good
that.
way to learn. That's how I did it from the start. So
Yeah.
that
Awesome.
was back then.
Very cool. And how do you when did you start getting your chops together enough to put bands together and get out and play gigs?
Yeah. Well, my thing was always book a gig and then learn how to play. Kind of
That's a good way to do it. That's one way.
jump in the deep end and learn how to swim.
Yeah.
Let me see. I think it was definitely early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the keys into the door for me was 60s music because it was so simple.
Okay.
And I got into a scene called the mod scene, and it was like the mod scene's a strange little scene. It's scooters and suits, and you're into Motown and R&B and kind of the Who and the Small Faces. And the Small Faces were a really great kind of very simple band that was like a precursor to Rod Stewart joining later, and it was the Faces, and it was kind of had that Stonesy kind of thing. So it's all basically blues, but that you could dance to, 3 and 4 chord stuff. So when I was a mod, that really introduced me to that kind of thing, real simple riffs. And so I learned. I think the thing was, and any advice I'd give to a young kid is learn 10 songs.
Yeah.
You know, like stockpile and learn 10 songs that you can that are easy, that you can get put together with another 3 or 4 guys and just do that, because you can spend a lot of wasted time just jamming on endless one chord sort of things. But if you want to do a gig, you had to have songs, you had to have a few. So, as simple as like Wild Thing and, Louie, again, 3 chord things. And, but there was this song called For Your Love by the Yardbirds.
Yep.
And, you know the one, and it's got sort of 2 different definitive feels to it. It's kind of like got this really great, pop kind of chorus, and then this middle 8-bit which goes into this kind of like a bluesy thing, which was apparently Eric Clapton's contribution. And then that made me think, oh, you can actually fuse all of the things into one. You can put bluesy stuff into the pop stuff. And that was one of those songs out of the 10 songs that I first played with a band, like a mod kind of band, at my house. And I was like, oh yeah, I could do this now. I can do this now. I'm just arrogantly as a teenager saying, yeah, this is going to be my thing. This is what I'll do. So yeah, that was that.
Yeah. Well, it's part of it as well. If you'd been acting, did you have a certain confidence getting up in front of people?
Yeah, yes and no. The confidence thing was more about, that was all I really knew I could do.
Okay.
Like that,
Yeah.
So it's funny when they talk about confidence with performance. They always talk about it with performance and public speaking and getting up in front of people. But you'd rarely use that same kind of approach if you were talking about, say, someone who was good at kicking a footy, right?
Yeah, sure.
You don't say to someone that's good at kicking a footy or is good at football, knowing that you're good at kicking a footy, that really must give you the confidence to get out there every Saturday and kick it around and, play footy. It sort of just is, right? They're good at that. And so that's all I was kind of good at, was getting up and performing. But the true answer to your question is that I just wanted a girlfriend,
Yeah.
And, like every other kind of kid. And that was my platform. That was what my way of promoting myself and getting up there. And it wasn't until years later that I realized that I actually had to practice and get really, really good at it, or better than I was, for it to give me a personal sense of achievement as well.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, because up until that point, it was just like, oh, we're just having a laugh. It's just another way to kind of, I don't know, not show off, but, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Get up. Yeah, the thing.
Yeah. So about the same time, early 80s, your sister Kate is starting to get attention in I'm Talking, and then moves on to her own solo career and sold squillions of records. When did you start working with her? Because you ended up, of course, becoming her music director. And
Yeah.
When did that all happen?
Oh, look, that's a story that we could probably talk on at another time, and
Sure.
it could go for hours.
Yeah.
But the sort of condensed version of it is that Melbourne at that particular time was a really, really amazing place to be a musician or a performer, because there was so much going on, and we didn't have the distraction of the internet and exposure to everything else in the world. The only thing we saw was some TV shows. We had NME and we had some other magazines.
Yeah.
The rest of it we sort of had to make up out of little bits of information that we're picking up along the way. So you get bands like I'm Talking that were doing 80s disco with a kind of a white, funky. They were sort of fusing Talking Heads with really black, funky electro disco bands like Shalimar and Chic, and you get this really raw sort of, I don't know, broken down version with all they needed was a singer, a really great singer. And Kate had been singing in soul bands in Melbourne and jazz groups, and it just was one of those magic moments where it just clicked, I'd been playing around that time. In fact, we did a lot of gigs together. I was playing with a mate of mine in one of my first bands. It was a band called Battle Happy, and that was on my Rickenbacker, and we were playing kind of, Battle Happy would play sort of like, I don't know, it was a little bit jungly and funky, and it was kind of a little bit like there was a band called Bow Wow Wow back in the day.
Remember.
And Hunters and Collectors had that sort of tribal beat sort of thing, and so we were sort of fusing all that. We were in that sort of that kind of thing.
Of course, Hunters, early 80s, that would have just been breaking right open.
It was incredible going to those gigs, and so we were like, well, how can we take that jungly kind of jungly jangle and do our thing? And so I remember me as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old telling the drummer that he won't be using rack toms, he'll just be using timbales instead of rack toms, right? That sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was, completely, and on this, you're not going to play any hi-hats it's all just going to be like jungle beats. He didn't know what I was talking about, but I guess what I was trying to say is make it sound more like Adam and the Ants or something, where it's like just like and over the top I'd do this big sort of jangle funk on the Rickenbacker, and my mate Gumpy who was singing, he would just sing the most obscure lyrics. It was really weird stuff. But yeah, we did a lot of gigs together with I'm Talking and a few other bands. God, it was a great time. But eventually Kate went out on her own and sort of dragged me in with her over to London to embark on this solo career, which meant writing songs and working with big producers, because it was on London Records, and there was quite a bit of backing behind Kate.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that was really a challenge, and it was like learn how to swim in the deep end. So that's when I kind of like joined in and did my best to kind of contribute there. And I remember learning stuff in the studio about how things worked, especially to do with soloing, because I would just play blues solos over anything, right?
Yeah.
But if you wanted to kind of get it a bit more jazzy and a bit more melodic, you had to sort of like, break down the chord changes and do all that kind of stuff, which everyone seems to know about. I didn't know about that then. And I had to do it on the fly in the studio, surrounded by, hotshot producers and people. And it was kind of like hair-raisingly exciting. And the stuff that came out when you work with a really great producer like someone like Nick Launay, who was producing that first album, Brave, you can actually find some great stuff from really underexperienced musicians if you are a great producer, and he definitely did that with me. And it was fantastic time. And then things, a lot of touring and a lot more songwriting and producing and band wrangling, and so many road stories and fantastic experiences. But it was great times.
And was it a natural progression that you would become Kate's music director? Were you already doing that at that stage?
Well, we sort of all were. We kind of all were in one way or another, because we were like a big organic beast. And sometimes the role of musical director is really just the dude that hands out the charts and helps with new players and their parts.
Right. Yeah.
That's all. I had that position by default on different things, and then we'd get in different people. We worked with one of the most incredible musicians ever. He's sadly now passed away, a guy called Paul Gray, who was the singer of Waiwanee.
Waiwanee, yeah.
Yeah, yep. And there was a lot more to that guy than just being the singer of Byron, which is a bit like that old joke, you fuck one goat, and that's all people know you for. But he was an incredible musician, like an accomplished composer and songwriter and musical director across the board. And so when he came on, it was like, oh, dude, you do it, because you're all over this. And we would share ideas and we would make things grow out of nothing, because we all had huge ideas and huge direction, and there wasn't a whole lot of ego back then. It was just this big fun ride. It was fantastic. So yeah, that's the musical director thing. I never really felt like I was like the wholly and solely that role, because Kate musically directs everything she does.
Sure.
She's an incredible musician herself.
Right, gotcha. Another project I want to ask you about is Trent Wood, which I discovered through Australian Guitar Magazine. They did an article on you. I think it's when I first noticed the Strat Plus and the and they had a couple of tracks on there, that power pop kind of thing, which was for its short life was quite prolific, and you guys were playing all over the place. Tell me about that project.
Wow, the doomed Trent Wood project. Okay,
If you want
so
to.
yeah. So after 20 years or so of playing with Kate and doing quite a bit of session work and playing with a whole bunch of different bands, and I got to say the association with Kate was just amazing because it led to so many great things,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and you know, amazing travels and playing overseas, and it's incredible, pushing my musical limits, like just having to learn jazz and stuff like that, which I've never been very good at, but like trying to get my head around it and different things like that was amazing. So after about 20 years of all of that, I wanted to see if I could do a solo thing, and it ended up that it should be more like for me, I thought it'd be better if it was more like a band thing.
Uh-huh.
And I wrote a bunch of songs and went into the studio and recorded them, and worked with another guy to kind of like executive produce the whole thing. And then we took the band out. We printed a CD and then took the band out to promote it. And I had this idea that if I just kept touring, you eventually become part of the fabric of the scene, and people would naturally follow. One of the things that we did as a promotional thing, but also just to do while we're on the road, was we did school shows. So we would do a thing called Rock Show 101, which I created, which was a program where kids at school put together a concert, and they form groups to kind of promote the show, sell tickets, and put marketing ideas together, merch and publicity. And then we had a tech crew that we trained up when we got there. We used to lug our own PA and then rock up to the school, and then part of their thing was they would have a battle of the bands, and the band that won their battle of the bands would be the support band for us, and then we'd do this amazing show, and it was incredible. And we toured around for probably 3 or 4 years, and it was a slog. Just around that time, the kind of major labels were all sort of imploding, and the internet was just starting to come in.
Yeah. So I should say, so this is early 2000s, I think 2003, 04, something like that. Right.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so that was all completely driven by myself and my partner at the time. And it was really like we probably shot ourselves in the foot by being so independent. We were sort of inspired by these independent guys. It wasn't until years later that I realised that none of those guys were actually truly independent. They were working with touring companies and with promoters and with with booking agencies, which we refused to. Right. And I don't think that the industry liked that very much.
Sure.
But as far as the music was concerned, it was I found it really fulfilling, and I was going to places musically that I'd kind of never really been before, and it steered away a little bit from the kind of straight up kind of guitar playing, and it was more songwriting driven.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the stuff that I was writing about was kind of reflecting on the kind of previous 4 or 5 years. Not a lot of people got it. It was pretty cryptic. But I don't often listen back to that record, but whenever I do, I go, wow, that was a real time. That was a real time.
Mm-hmm.
That's that.
Yeah. Yeah, cool, man. Yeah. Funny, yeah, because I always want to ask about it because I read about you guys and got a hold of a CD somehow. And yeah. You've, these days, obviously music's still a huge part of your life. You're gigging all the time, but you're also running a PR company. You're a co-director of the Rock Academy. So it's interesting you mentioned about being involved in schools all that time ago, because it's still obviously a passion of yours as well. How much do you think doing the slog of being a self-employed musician and working with Kate and taking your own thing out, how much of that do you think informs this creative and I guess entrepreneurial streak in you?
Yeah, I think it completely and utterly informs it, and gives it its foundations. Um, my wife and I run a PR company, and we often get young people in wanting to work with us, wanting to do internships, and they're fresh out of university and they want to come and work. And the first question we ask them is, how much experience in this field do you have? And a lot of them don't have any experience. And I think that getting out there and getting experience and getting doing the slog and seeing it as a character building, kind of career building move, is really beneficial, because you can go to uni and get a degree in music. You can go to uni and get a degree in PR and communications, but it only is as valuable as you can actually execute it, and it's the practical use. A lot of that comes from actually getting in the field and applying the methods and the theories. I think that nowadays, more than years ago, where you could just be a guitarist or just be in a band, I think that there's so much more opportunity to expand and to be in control of your career. I would say do as much work on your guitar playing as you do on learning how to build websites, or learning about e-commerce, or learning about getting some design skills happening, because you're going to need to do that, because you're not going to make money out of selling your records anymore, because of Spotify, but you will still make money out of something they can't replace, and that is a gig. Get a great deal on the door and then sell your t-shirts. Come up with some great product that you can flog to punters so they become part of your community. So that's kind of what we're getting into a lot with the company that I work with in PR, but also that I help young people with Rock Academy, which is actually running these two weeks that we're talking right now.
Okay,
yeah.
Excellent.
And we started out 5 years ago with 15 kids, and now we've got about 80. And the future is safe in their hands, because they really get it. They really get what it's all about, and they're actually very inspiring to work with, these young guys. But the principles of the music part of it are all pretty much the same as they ever were, and that is, the power comes from your passion, and and all of the expression comes from your personality and from your emotions. And if you can translate that into your music in a way where you can collaborate with others, and not kill each other, then you've got somewhere to kind of build from, So that's what we give them with Rock Academy, and that's my proudest thing that I work on, I think, is that. And if there was a legacy to leave, I think that would be something. I think, yeah.
All right, there you go. My conversation with Phil Ceberano. And man, if you look over that career that is ongoing, and all the great things he has done and achieved, if his proudest moment is raising up a new generation of musicians and imparting all that wisdom and experience and encouragement, I think that says a lot about Phil's character. I love hearing about that. Now, I need to tell you, Phil will be appearing in another podcast episode coming up soon. It's a secret little project. I can't tell you too much other than to say Phil will be talking a lot about his 1999 Strat Plus. That's all I'm going to say. Stay tuned. Okie dokie, almost time to go. So I just want to say thank you for listening to the Guitar Speak podcast. If you head on over to guitarspeakpodcast.com, you can find all of our links to social media, where to subscribe to the show, how to buy a t-shirt, how to get in touch, all that kind of stuff. Okay, my name's Matt Wakeling. Thank you again for tuning in, and I'll catch you next time. Bye now.